So, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to our live event on agrotech from the Irish Business Network Brazil. We're delighted to have you all with us today. My name is Richard Fenning. I'm from Ireland. I work in e-commerce and I've been living here in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for the last 2 years, and I'm representing the Irish Business Network today as a board member. The Irish Business Network Brazil is a group focused on developing business relations between Brazil and Ireland. Our goal is to be the representative voice of Irish business in Brazil, to support Brazilian companies which have invested in or trade with Ireland, and provide links to business networks and chambers in Ireland and in Brazil. Ultimately, we want to forge stronger commercial ties between Ireland and Brazil. The group was set up last year, and we've received a lot of support from the Department of Foreign Affairs in Dublin and from the Irish Consulate in Sao Paulo. Also, the Irish Ambassador to Brazil, Sean Hoy, is our honorary president. Today we have a great event in store for you guys. However, events like these are only made possible by the great work of a lot of people. So I'd like to formally thank everyone who has made this event possible today. I'd also like to thank our generous corporate sponsors. And shortly I'm going to hand over to Alessandro Bisonotto from Mucol to make a very quick presentation about himself. Alessandro is a zoologist. He has an MBA in agribusiness, and he's got an MSc in veterinary science. He's a professor, a researcher, and a manager, and he's been working in this field for over 25 years. So, Alessandro, come on in.
Hello, Richard. Thank you for my presentation. It's an honor to participate in this event. Come on in the talking with you. Sustainability in agribusiness guarantees the performance on the activity, in the attention to demand the consumers more and more conscious. Technology is an essential tool for professionals and farmers to facilitate the control of the production process, increasing efficiency and reducing problems. In animal production, technological innovations have recently, particularly in livestock, pasture production, low quality of labor, lack of energy, and also robust mobility networks in rural areas contributed to the delay in Brazil. Today, with advance of communication technology and innovation, the offer of apps applied the problem solving and management in animal production is growing. Mucol is a clear and interesting example to demonstrate this fact. It was developed to reduce neonatal calf mortality with an average rate of 3% in Europe and 7% in Brazil, with 1/4 of occurrence than on calving. The system creates a communication network to monitor the moments before the calving in real time. The equipment attached to the cow communicates the intensity of her movements to registered cell phones, alerting the cow herd, the manager, and the owner about the signs of calving. Alert messages can vary from animal to animal. From the monitored females in my research, alerted messages started between 4 to 24 hours before of calving for primiparous, and up to 1.5 hours for multiparous calves. And the use of Mucol showed advantages such as reduces deaths from difficulties in calving, eliminates predators' attacks on calves, guarantees colostrum at the ideal time This is very, very important for the calf's immunity system, improves the hygienic and sanitary control of the calf and the cow, reduces the use of veterinary products, promotes the animal welfare, provides better performance, and facilitates the work of the cow herd. The use of the system reduces mortality and costs in phase most expensive cattle. Then I congratulate the event organizers. Very, very important for sustainable development. And thanks for attention here.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Alessandro. Much appreciated for your presentation today and the generous sponsorship from you guys in MoveCall. Much obliged. We'd also like to thank our other sponsor, that's SMT Data Analytics. SMT Data Analytics, they are a financial data consultancy company focused on solving business problems using data. So I'd like to thank SMT for your partnership, and much obliged. Now I'm going to pass over to our moderator, who is Rosanna Jamal. Rosanna has over 30 years experience in innovation in several different areas. She's the founder of Baita Startup Accelerator, and now she leads an accelerator program for agri-techs with Facebook. Rosanna, over to you, and I hope everyone enjoys the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation to participate. Thank you for the Irish Business Network Brazil to be here. Well, this is going to be a quite challenging panel because the four panelists are very strong, and I'd like them to introduce themselves. Talking about the subject, we are going to address many different aspects. So let's start with Natalia. Natalia, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm the founder and CEO of Orchestra Innovation Center. We are an accelerator startups in agribusiness. Our main purpose is bringing the digital transformation to the huge polos of agribusiness in the field. We develop programs for startups, programs, challenges, and projects with startups and all the corporations and companies of the whole value chain of agribusiness. And we work together in the digital transformation with those who are not, with those which are the center of the market, the farmers and the local agribusiness that are not being assisted yet for the innovation agents for bringing the innovation and digital transformation process in agribusiness. And I will say a little bit about my background. I'm a daughter of farmers, and all my family are farmers. My parents also have a sale agribusiness company of 36 years of market in Brazil, in our region, in Rio Verde, the southeast of Goiás, in the state of Goiás in Brazil, and also Mato Grosso. I started my career in the family business, and I introduced the innovation in the family business in the company. And also I started a branch, an innovation branch. And because of this, I went more or less 4 years ago to Stanford to study innovation and understand better all the innovation ecosystem in Silicon Valley. And after this, I understand how the companies and startups bring and develop innovation together. And I started my the orchestra purpose, the orchestra business model, and we are doing a great job right now in our region, in our polo of agribusiness.
Thank you, Natalia. Let's go to Avram right now. Can you please start, Avram?
Yeah, there you go. Hi, my name is Avram Slovic. I'm American. I've been living in Brazil for 13 years, working in and around agriculture and technologies, most specifically around bioinputs, so biological and biochemical inputs for production. I also founded an online retailer, an agricultural retailer, 2015. It's the first e-commerce agricultural retailer in Brazil. It's called instaagro.com. So got to learn kind of head first about how to sell inputs, chemicals, seeds, fertilizers, and biologicals online, and how to understand how to map the online presence of Brazilian growers. Most recently, since 2018, I've been responsible for the Latin American operations for a company called Envio Sciences, which is a new bioinputs company based out of the United States, out of Boston, with really a host of very innovative solutions, both in the precision ag and the biotechnology space. Solutions for crop protection and pest combat. So really a pleasure to be here. Thanks again for the invitation. And I'm looking forward to a good discussion with all the panelists.
Thank you, Avram. Let's go now to Bernard.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Good to be here. My name is Bernard Kiep. I have a British passport. I have a German passport, but I was born in Brazil. Since 1844, we are in Brazil, so we have a long history. All our history has been related to agriculture in our family. Today, we operate some family farms, majorly in soya beans, corn, edible beans, cattle, raising calves, and also dairy. And we also have some activity in timber, mainly eucalyptus and pinos. My experience has been always related to agriculture. I worked many years for the irrigation industry. My father was one of the founders of a company here in Brazil. We sold that company. And today I'm very active with companies either related to water management. I'm the general manager of Bermat, an Israeli company that is very well suited here in Brazil. But I also am very active on the Harvard Business Angels Club. We invest in startups. I kind of help them on the ag side. We have quite a lot of investments already done in the agriculture segment. And I'm a board member of a technology company in Austria. That is one of the leading companies in the segment for weather sensors. And it's very interesting to see between what the farmer needs and what we technology-wise are developing. And I believe we will talk about this. Thank you for being here, and I hope you will have a great discussion.
Thank you, Bernard. And now let's go to Kieran.
Hi, my name is Kieran Gartlin. I'm Irish, but almost half Brazilian at this stage. I've been here 26 years. I arrived exactly 26 years ago, so half my life. I work for the Yield Lab, which is a venture capital fund that invests exclusively in ag and food tech startups. I was originally raised on a dairy farm in Ireland. It was too hard to work though, so that's why I decided to go to college and got a degree in economics. And that led me to travel around the world. And I ended up in Brazil in 1994, more by accident than design, and ended up staying. I liked it, so I stayed. I've worked in the financial and commodities sectors most of my career. Worked with investment banks, the Chicago Board of Trade, and different other financial institutions. But I think the ag sector has always been very attractive, and especially now that technology exists to improve life on the farm. My family farm has been completely transformed by technology over the last couple of years, including robots to do the milking, drones to do monitoring. So I think maybe if I was growing up now, I might have been more inclined to stay on the farm with all of those technology and toys almost. So you don't really even have to get your hands dirty anymore. So I think that's what sort of attracted me to this space, the ag tech space, which is very exciting in Brazil, and looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Kieran. Well, let's start then our debate here. Everybody knows that Brazil is a huge food producer, recognized around the world. It's not different from any other place. Agriculture in Brazil is also traditional. But we are talking here with four people that are really dealing with the top-notch in technology for agriculture, either in bio or any other thing. I will start with Avram. That's really the very beginning route of evolution in terms of agribusiness. Can you talk a little bit about how the farmers or the agricultural business recognize technology here? I'm talking about biotechnology that you are involved very deeply. Can you explain a little bit how this is sold and how this is used by local farmers?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, it all starts, I think, with the genetics. That's probably the highest value product in anyone's farm is going to be good genetics. And as you guys all said, Brazil is highly sophisticated in terms of the products that people are adopting. So I think the growers depend heavily on their agronomists, or if they themselves are agronomists, they really need to understand the whole technology offer that's available, and then make good decisions for based on their climatic situation, on their irrigation, on the crop that they're going to be growing, and on the pest pressure that's expected for that crop in that region. So based on that kind of complex equation, they tend to they'll choose the right genetics. For instance, if it's GMO or not. If it's a row crop, typically it'll be a GMO. But if it's, for instance, perennial, there are almost no GMO perennials available in Brazil, but there are a whole host of varied genetics. And then, they'll have to put together, obviously, a plan between chemistry, fertilizers, irrigation or not. Will they use biologics, and what types of biologics? That could be microbiologics or macro or biochemical. So there's a diverse offering of technologies, and I think they really need to think carefully about this complex equation and what's the best mix to get started with. And then as time goes on and as the seasons change and as the climate kind of evolves, how do you best adapt given this diverse portfolio? I would say that the good thing in Brazil is that there are thousands of products. So the offer is immense, and so the work is pretty difficult for a good agronomist to think about, between these thousands of products, this supermarket of products, what makes sense at any particular moment. But there's a lot of amazing technology out there, and so I don't think technology is the limiting factor. I think understanding the technologies and how they come together is more the challenge.
This is a good point, because in the end of the day, the choice by the farmer or by the agronomist is going to be hard enough to understand what's the best choice. And it's very common to hear that they are really challenged by this decision-making process, and they don't know where to trust. Natalia, can you, as a farmer, your family is farmer, your family has business in farm in this area. Can you talk a little bit about how those farmers, they choose their products to use? How this is received by them when a new product come in to the market?
She's on mute. I think you're on mute, Natalia.
Yeah. Okay. This is a problem. One of the most problem, I think. The farmers have all days a lot of sales, a lot of people that are trying to sell products for them, and they don't know which products to choose, and sometimes they block some technologies, and sometimes they choose for some technologies that don't work very well in the system. And this is a real problem that we are trying to solve, to bring a little bit more security for them to make a decision and to know which technology to choose. This is I think the mainly barrier that we have to how can I say, to achieve, and the farmers are a little bit how can I say, traditionals, and they have a lot of in risk, so it's difficult for them to choose the technology and know which are the gains, the return with each technology they would like to choose.
This is a good point. And talking about that, Bernard is an investor and a farmer. How do you select your choices for your farm in terms of technologies? I mean, when you haven't faced different technologies or new technologies for agriculture in general. Can you explain a little bit about that, Bern?
Sure, Rosanna. Look, first of all, we all know that farmers traditionally are conservative. And they are, because all the lovely guys that come and sell us something, they have no skin in the game, and they're actually trying to sell something, and they have no really responsibility in certain cases. And so I'm quite critical. This is why the different boards or companies that I invested, they are sometimes a little bit angry with me, because I tell them the truth. And this digital dream on the farming is complicated. Like when Kieran was saying now his family farm changed completely, and it's important to also look at the balance sheet, how the balance sheet changed of the farm with all the investments they did. Are they paying for them or not? And this is the number one thing that I do and that I recommend to different farmers is you need to pay for the investment. You need to pay for the technology. Otherwise, it's dangerous. And either the technology doesn't work and it's not sustainable, or it's just too expensive. And, a lot of data, a lot of information doesn't mean anything to the farmer. It has to be right data. It has to be data he needs. And so the products need to last. Don't buy cheap stuff that doesn't last. The cycle that we need to look on a farm, it's 7 years. It's not 1 or 2 years. And but we need to change faster. Oh, okay, but then you need to see how you calculate that. And another aspect that going a little bit on what Natalia said, it's far too risky for a farmer, even a progressive farmer, to make big gambles. It doesn't work. So we all know that you have certain areas, you take a certain percentage of your field or even of your cattle or so, and you do test something new. Testing something new doesn't mean you do it all over. You go, you see, you get mature to it. So some of the startups that we talk to don't understand that it needs 3 or 4 years to maybe even get close to a farmer to use your products completely. It's not like, oh, it's wonderful, you will save 10%. Well, let's really find out if it's really saving. So there is a little bit more behind it. And the cycle in farming is, it's not as easy to be disruptive in certain other areas where you can have, Moore's law being applied.
I agree. And that brings another point related to the investments in startups that are coming. They are growing and growing the number of startups in agribusiness. We are seeing agribusiness as a trend, let's say, in Brazil, because Brazil is growing and growing and growing agribusiness. It's now agri is cute, agri is something, everybody wants to do something with agro. So the same for startups. Kieran, when you're trying to select a startup to invest, how do you check whether what they are selling is a dream or really something important that will help the farmers or will help the agriculture to grow, the profitability to grow?
Well, first of all, I mean, because we invest in very early stage startups, a lot of times it's still in the idea stage. So we invest more in the team, the capacity of the team. So we look very in depth into the capacity of the team to execute. So it has to be a well balanced team, complementary aspects. A lot of times we see teams that are too product focused. Maybe they don't have a commercial side, or they're too commercial and they don't really understand the farming. So they have to have a good balance of experience and be sort of domain experts and know exactly the pain that the farmer or whoever they're offering the service product to feels. So we have to be convinced that it's the right team to execute that plan. We also we tend to stay a little bit away from on-farm agronomic solutions for very, very early stage investments, because again, we're not experts and nobody really is in knowing what exactly the farmer will adopt and how quickly. So it's always a very slow sales cycle. So we tend to look at more outside the farm gate systemic solutions that we know can be scaled, more B2B to C. So people that are servicing the farmers, like financial banks, co-ops, or some other institution, input resellers, whatever. So I think it's easier to scale those solutions. And what we find is probably those solutions will then bring further solutions, technologies into the farm. If you can link credit or insurance to on-farm data, which will make those solutions more viable. For example, if you're doing crop monitoring for somebody that's financing the farmers, you need technology on the farm to be able to, for the farmer, for him to be able to access that cheaper financing or credit line. So I think it's all interconnected, but I think probably the lowest hanging fruit are those solutions that are outside the farm gate. And then we probably see technologies creeping into the farm that will be quicker once we have the outside of the farm, a lot of those systemic solutions resolved in the first place. But also, as Bernard mentioned, I think skin in the game is very important. What we are seeing is some outcome-based selling, which from the input suppliers, which I think gives some of the risk to the seller of the product. I think for startups, that could be a solution. So it's all about finding the right business model. A lot of time, the farmer doesn't want to invest in CapEx intensive solutions. So maybe a SaaS model where he's paying for it as a service for a while until he tests it, where he doesn't have such a big investment. So there's a lot of different factors when we analyze a startup, and it's very complex. Farming is already a complex sector, and farmers are complex. So it takes a long time to analyze startups from that point of view. So it's not easy, but we sort of we feel confident when it's the right team. At least then they can pivot if the product doesn't work. So
the type of startup that you invest seems to be more digital than any other type, right? Do you doing that for any biotech?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we look at stuff that's scalable and that has potential for exponential growth. So usually it's a digital high-tech solution that's not very hands-on in terms of onboarding or getting new customers. So it has to be repeatable and exponential growth. So we look at biotech. We look at any sort of outside the farm gate marketplaces, insurance, credit. We're a bit slower about on-farm stuff unless it makes a lot of sense and we see traction already. If the startup has already done something in terms of sales, we'll be a bit maybe more inclined to look at it. But we tend to stay away from that at early stage startups. But we're open to everything.
Okay, this brings to my mind one thing that I discussed with Avram a little bit before when we were preparing for this chat. Is about the mix between biotech and digital technologies together, helping to solve any type of problem in the farm. One of the things that we learned in our accelerator was that the customer of the data that you generate is not necessarily the farmer. Maybe the big corps that want to know about the performance of their products in the farm. So can you explain a little bit, Avram, how you handle this mix between digital and biotech, digital information to support the biotech, the research that you have in your area?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's still a real challenge, I would say. I think I said this to you, Rosanna, we're still really in early days in digitizing the data on a farm, right? I mean, even if it's been 5-8 years maybe that we've been collecting data, but that's nothing if you consider, all the medical records that we've been collecting, for the last couple hundred years, or, process data that we have. So I think we're still in the very beginning of understanding, of just still in the collection phase, collecting data and trying to get insights from that and correlate in meaningful correlations between, let's say, yield data correlated to what inputs I used. I think that's it's starting, but I think we're still in the very beginning. What our approach, at least at Envio, is in how we're using digital data is to really understand, what's going on the farm, particularly on the pest pressure. If we can understand, let's say, the density of insects that are infesting, an orange grove, for instance, and then if we then address that with a particular molecule or particular solution, how does that change over time? And we can take it one step further now. With all the different types of spectroscopies that are available, we can look at, for instance, how much CO2 is being emitted by the trees, or how much CO2 the trees are capturing. So, a healthy tree, for instance, is a tree that's capturing CO2 and that's turning it into fruit and wood and leaves. So there is a lot of information we can measure. And the key is how to correlate that to what we did, how we treated the grove, how we treated let's say the soil or the pests or the diseases, and see if there's a meaningful correlation between between the positive impact that we hope to see and the activity that we did.
I understand. This is interesting because one thing that I was wondering is whether do you prefer to hear from the farmer about the performance of your product, or analyze the data that you say something about the product? What do you prefer?
Well, I mean, nothing I think is better than talking to the grower, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people, they eat and breathe and live this every day. They know their field, they know their soil, they know the weather, they know their plants. So we have to, obviously, there's no better data than that. But I think the hard data, let's call it, is a very good, is a good complement. It's like, again, I would say like going to the doctor. I mean, the doctor needs to listen to the patient first of all, but then they're going to listen to the heart, and they're going to take the blood pressure, and all that complements the story and tries to, add deeper levels of understanding of what's going on, let's say, behind the scenes. So, no one knows their land and their production and the risks better than the grower. But as much as we can complement that voice of the customer and the voice of the grower with meaningful data, we start to build out a much more complete picture.
This is a good point when you make the comparison about the exams that we do in healthcare. because there's a number that I learned that when you are going to check an exam, the results of an exam, the precision for a doctor is 65%, and the precision for an automatic, I don't know, Laudo,
diagnostic tool.
The diagnostic is about 90%, 95%. So this means that maybe in one day there will be a change. And one thing that's important to bring to the table is that Google has just announced the program for agribusiness, agridata. So this means they are seeing this as the next big things. They did it in the past for healthcare, and now they are doing for agribusiness. So maybe there will be some index data for agro that may change something. We don't know where it's going, and let's see. It's going to be a quite interesting thing to address. And I think Natalia has something in the area, right, Natalia, related to data and prediction that you are working your accelerator, right?
Yeah, we are working with startups that offers crop management and precision farming solutions, such as plant counting and variable rate application technology. But right now we are also starting in a project that we are bringing all the data, soil data, with our Polo, with a lot of agribusiness. We are starting to work with some agribusiness pools that already have more or less 10 years of field soil data. And with this, we are looking to develop some technologies to help them, but also to help them in bringing some more value for the commodities that we are producing, and also bringing for farmers some systemic financial solutions, and we are looking also to do some projects with these data for seed companies and traders, helping in projects for traceability, because traceability is one of the most problems here. And a lot of mainly the problems are the same for all the chain of the agribusiness, and we are looking in projects to bring more information, so more data for how can I say, reduce the risks in production, and reduce the financial risks also, and making easier to have some investors investing in farmers, in agribusiness, Brazilian agribusiness, and Brazilian farmers.
Good to hear that. Bernard, question to you regarding the data that you generate in your farm. Are you a customer of that data, or you provide this to another person to check what's there in terms of decision making?
Look, I will answer the question, but I first will say something. When we discuss examples from the industry or even from the health system, we always talk about something tangible normally an environment that is controlled, or we talk about taking care of something that is alive. I'm also very focused on the health system from the digital changes. The difference is that the life in a human being life is somehow valued completely different than a life of one soybean. If you scale it up in money, probably you will say it's impossible, because a human being life, you cannot put a price on it. And agriculture means that we're handling about something that is alive, 4 elements. And when you said before, oh, there is a wipe now to go about ag and so on, and the digital ag, unfortunately, I'm also helping the Zalki Tech. I'm one of their early mentors on very early stage, actually ideas. There is no traction, nothing. And I would say that for all the guys who are listening to us, if they're investors, to be very careful. If they don't understand farming, be cautious. Think about Warren Buffett. He always says, I don't invest in something I don't understand. And took him 15 years to invest in Apple before he invested in it. In the majority, in my opinion, we are creating a lot of data, and that goes back to your answer, that has no use for 99% of farmers. And, you know, I myself was selling equipment that was generating data, and the guys looked at me and said, come on, Bernard, don't bullshit me. You are a farmer yourself. What do you do with that damn dumb? I said, nothing. You know, this is when I was starting to create also certain animosity within the companies that I was working, because I said, look, for example, variable rate, precision farming. Come on, guys, this is something we have the technology for over 20 years. You know, and it's in theory very simple. In practice, to make it really work, you need a lot of data, and all this data needs to talk to each other. And honestly, none, not Google, not Microsoft, not Oracle, everybody, when they look, and I worked for some of these guys on a consultant basis, when they looked into ag and saw the complexity, they run away. Because they realized it's not in a controlled environment. So going to your answer, for example, Metos, the company that I'm on the board that exists for 35 years, who have sensors that last an average 12 to 15 years. Every day, literally every day, there's a new startup coming up with something similar and a little bit cheaper, but you don't know if it works. So the data that we as farmers need is a data that when we ask for it, it's available, and not when the software guy or when the internet will give connection or whatever. It's a data that when I need, I have it. And the second thing is, it gives me a history. We need history. Willing or not, many of our startups, I will make a little metaphor that is sometimes not well seen, but a lot of startups in the ag are like someone telling a mother and a father how to teach their children. Well, normally parents don't like if someone tells them how to teach their children. Normally they don't like that. Secondly, there is no skin in the game. They tell them how to teach your children or to educate them, but they don't really stay close, and then they leave you. And that is the point. So the data needs to be tangible and needs to stay with you before and after. Cannot be just a quick come and go.
Yeah, this is a very good point. This is something that Kieran maybe talk a little bit about the data that are generated by those startups. And I love, by the way, I love young startups that generate something different, that make any type of innovation. But I know that if you don't know the land, if you don't have the land on your boots, something is wrong, right? You need to learn, you need to know what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about your how you find the startups that you really want that will generate data. Can you explain a little bit?
So yeah, I think as Bernard said, too much data can be a bad thing. I think we also have the concept of good enough technology, which is sometimes better than very high tech, too sophisticated. It's like selling a Ferrari to somebody that doesn't drive. So I think sometimes you can go into overdrive with how much data you're providing and the complexity of some of this technology, whereas something simpler, more basic could be maybe more suitable to as a way of getting the farmer as a first mover. And I'll give a good example. It's when on my family farm, and it was a big investment to invest in robots to do the milking, the sales guy that was trying to sell this technology to my brother for many years, he always focused on the technology side of how this is going to make his life a lot easier and all the data it's going to produce. But that wasn't his main pain point. Eventually, he made the sale when he discovered that my brother only has one son who was at college, and he was afraid that his son wouldn't continue on the farm. So I think his pain point was more succession, keeping his son on the farm, and that's why eventually he invested in the technology. But later he discovered how useful that data was in terms of identifying early detection of mastitis or other diseases, cut down on the use of antibiotics, increase the quality of the milk, increase production because cows were milking when they wanted to milk 24 hours a day. So they would actually milk more often than twice a day, which was what he was doing manually. So all of those benefits, he wasn't sold on them when the sales guy was going around, because it wasn't really something that he could identify with, and maybe only later when he felt the technology and saw the power of it, that sort of was something that he could identify with. But I think originally you have to find some common language with the farmer. Don't try to over sell it in terms of the sophistication of the data, because sometimes that works against you. Too much data is bad. I mean, it distracts from maybe the real important data. So instead of looking at 100 points of data, you should be looking at 1 or 2 points that are more important. So all of that, I think, it's important lessons, and startups tend to learn it after a while,
Kieran,
but it can be costly.
Kieran, just interrupting you, but bringing one
Sure.
point for your example that is lovely for Brazil. You know, when your brother invested in that milking system, he had probably a good credit line with a reasonable interest rate that made sense in his balance sheet to put it in.
And even more than that, he had support from the government, right? He had maybe some sort of incentives. So you're right. It still was a big investment. I mean, he's paying for over 10 years, but nothing like what the conditions are here to borrow money in Brazil at interest rates that are crazy, no government support, and much bigger scale. So his is a small farm. It's like a 100-acre farm, 150 cows. So it's a much smaller operation, but also a lot of financial support in terms of low interest rate loans, maybe tax breaks from the government, in technology incentives. But even so, I mean, it still took him a long time to decide to go for it, right? So you can imagine here in Brazil, where you don't have those advantages, then it's even harder to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Natalia.
Sorry, I would like to say something about this. The farmers in the local agribusinesses, they need financial incentives for the adoption of sustainable technologies and other technologies. If they could have a certain financial return, they certainly will do this, will adopt. This is, I think, we need a more government incentives for this. We need to increase the added value of their production, and also with the technologies, and we need taxes incentives for this. Brazil needs to change this, to incentive all the farmers, changing the way they produce right now, for them to choose technology more sustainable,
But I Natalia, I will throw in a little bit controversy here. Of course, a lot of people ask me, why did the Brazilian ag business grow most than all the rest of the world almost combined? Number one, because we had no government influence. Number two, we had farmers that wanted to make money. And it's the only place in the world that I at least go around, and the universities for ag science are full. And people are excited. In the US, they're all getting old and retiring.
Yeah.
In Europe, it's like Kieran said, if there is no subsidy, there's nobody on the farms.
Yes.
Brazil, we don't. So should we really ask Natalia to go the same route as the Northern Hemisphere? I think that the main point here that is so exciting about Brazil is that our farmers hold land for the environment. Our farmers pay in average 3 to 4% a year more than any other place in the world. We have cheaper labor. That's correct. That's one of our advantages. We have tropical land, so we can do 2 and sometimes 5 crops in 2 years with a lot of problems that we need to manage. But the main reason is for the success story of Brazil, and I remember discussing that with the Chinese government when we did mega projects in China, was, look, Brazil has something that nobody else has. They have young, dynamic farmers that want to make money.
I agree with this, and I think the technology is bringing the next generation together, and they are looking to change a lot of things. But when they started to try to implement the technologies, there are some gaps, and one of the gaps are certainly about the return. And when we work with commodities, so a lot of technologies, we are talking about technologies that don't have integration. And for the farmer, if he choose only one technology, this technology couldn't help him. He needs more. He needs more technologies. And when he start to invest in a lot of technology, this becomes too much, because we are talking about some productions that are commodities. They don't have a lot of value added, and for this we have great productions, a lot of billions of productions. We need to bring technology to this market, because there are a lot of gaps and problems that could be solved, and a lot of sustainable technologies for this. But the farmers, they do this. They are investing in a lot of things, and they don't have return today. If an example, if he use some technology sometimes that don't bring a lower cost immediately, they don't have the certain that if they use a good technology, a sustainable technology, they are helping the ecosystem, but the price of their grains are the same. The same as the price as another guy that don't have the same technologies. And do you understand that I'm trying?
Absolutely. This is why we all that are involved in this business, we need to look definitely for sustainability. And I think this is Avram, he is very focused on this, and I'm too, to always look into something. And sustainability doesn't mean just to feel good. Sustainability is to use something without destroying it. And, you know, for example, when they talk and say that we subtropical farmers here in Brazil, you know, we are burning things, that's a complete nonsense. We don't want to burn anything. Our biggest asset is our soil, and mistreating our soil is destroying our money. You know, we are sitting, most of us in Brazil are sitting on, if we see the capital ratio is like 80% is the land and 20% is what we do on top of it. So if we destroy our soil, we destroy our land. So
everything,
this is not only a stupid farmer, it's someone that will really not even go forward. Second point that is very crucial on our subject that we are talking about is with technology, is in Europe or let's call it the Northern Hemisphere, labor cost has changed a lot. Here, interesting is that the technology is not that much because of the labor cost. It's because of the labor quality. You know, most of us want to go on bigger machines and improve them and so on. Of course, the window of planting, so on. But the key is, you know, to have 5 good guys on the farm to know how to use a planter is trouble. For many, if they have 2, they're happy. And then imagine the mega farms. So it is more quality than other. And the labor cost doesn't drive us so much. But then it shows again that the point of return that you really have on the new technology is very slim. And we farmers, we get really pissed if these guys come and say, oh no, but this is only 10 reais per hectare on the soybean. You know, really, I mean, I really feel that the guys who come with that kind of sales strategy, they don't know how the farmer has, because all of a sudden, if he's only producing half because of the climate, he will not have this 10 reais. And the risk is only on him. So, you know, I work on some investment with Kirian, and it's funny, Kirian, how we see in our business, and we actually have a case we're working on. Well, the guy made his evaluation close to the sky, you know, and I went to him and said, sorry, we are not farming on the clouds, we're farming down here.
Great.
I'm sorry, I was muted because of the noise here. So there's a question that Richard just sent to me, Ryan. Can you please answer this, Bernard?
If not supporting government incentives, what does this feel to? Look, I'm personally representing 2 big associations in the government, and we're of course always asking for money to the government. It's kind of, I think, around the world, it's something that people always do with their open pockets to the government. But on the other hand, I am a firm believer that the main thing to resolve poverty, and this is what in the end, it's the end game. The end game that we want is that everybody has something to eat and can afford it. The truth around the world, and I'm willing if you guys challenge me, is not the scarcity of our 4 elements to produce food. That's not the problem on the planet. The problem on the planet is to have enough money to pay the farmers to produce the food. So, you know, Bolsa Familia, it's always criticized in Brazil to help the poor, but they give them a little money and then they go around and buy and eat what they buy. At least they create the market instead of giving food stamps or giving food for free. Willing or not, I'm definitely not a dry capitalist. Even so, I graduated at Harvard. We still have a very social, clear sense for the planet. But what we really need is to make sure that from a social standpoint, the people can buy what the farmer needs. And actually, we're seeing that in Europe. I mean, in Europe, we're seeing now products being made at prices Kieran, how much does you brother get for a liter of milk?
He gets around, I think it was, when I calculated, it was actually less than the Brazilian farmers was making that. And that was about 6 months ago. But I think the price is volatile over the past year, has changed a lot. But when I did compare with the currency and all of that.
Well, I don't know the Irish, but I checked with the German one that I have a family member there, and they make 3 times more than in Brazil in average, you know?
I was surprised,
And it's really on farming, it's really it's the point of what stands between your cost and what you make. It's like in an industry. The difference is that an industry goes bankrupt. And the farmer doesn't go bankrupt. Farmers stay alive for years and years losing money because they have nothing else to do, you know, only if they're completely cut with their credit and so on. So the answer to the question about, you know, it's not subsidies. I am not in favor of subsidies. I'm in favor of making sure that longevity is ensured.
I agree, Bernard. And I think technology is a better solution than the government. I was just going to say that on my brother's farm, that his next project is to process the milk on the farm and be a price maker, not a price taker. Generate more value as opposed to commodities, and that's, I think, for me, the big answer is when farmers realize that, then they won't be looking for government subsidies.
Mm-hmm. So based on that discussion, what we are talking here is that technology can help, government can be a problem, but we do need to do something to improve the productivity. So what's the real thing that Brazil needs to grow more and more in agriculture, to grow and to be better in agriculture? Sometimes it's not grow, but really be better, cheaper, or whatever. So can you elaborate on this, starting with Avram?
Well, I mean, I think it's crop specific. I can tell you, for instance, in citrus, the way that Brazil has maintained being competitive is by growing plants closer and closer together. So, you know, increasing the density. If you compare Florida to Brazil, for instance, Florida grows about 400 trees per hectare, where, you know, Brazil is now 600, 700 trees per hectare. So they can literally squeeze more juice out of a hectare than they can in Florida. And there's a strategic reason for that. It's to basically have enough trees that when certain diseases like greening, you know, kill off 20 or 30% of your grove, you still have enough left that you can kind of recycle the trees over time and have a good ROI over 15 or 18 years. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, one is just more sophisticated growing practices, taking care of the soil, just like Bernard mentioned. I mean, the soil is really the, you know, 70 or 80% of the value of the production. And so making sure that they're using inputs that are enriching the soil and keeping the productivity high and increasing over time. And I just think quality, as much as we can think quality and over quantity, I think the Brazilian grower will continue to have an edge over time. We do have an advantage, and I mean, this is a discussion we could have probably for hours, but I think we do have an advantage because we have a lower labor cost, of course, than in the EU or in America. But so there, you know, there's an inherent advantage, I think, for the Brazilian grower, but that doesn't mean that they can grow something that's poor quality. It needs to be high quality, go into good export markets, and the Brazilian consumer, you know, hopefully will be also willing to pay for high quality products within the country.
Cool. Anything related to education?
Well, sure. I mean, everything is education. Yeah. So
okay. So now this is something that I've been hearing because of this program with Facebook. Education is key because in the end of the day, they don't know even how to use a cell phone. The people on the farm, right?
Well, I'm not sure I believe that. I mean, we did a big study when we started InstaAgro, you know, 5 years ago, and you've probably seen this data from I think it's the Brazilian Rural Marketing Association, I mean, the Brazilian grower is extremely connected. I think it was 80%.
Oh,
Yeah.
they are. What I mean is that they don't know how to use this connectivity to help them in the land. They do a lot with WhatsApp, Facebook, and etc. social networks.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a very good research from Embrapa about that back in May. Embrapa, Sebrae, and INPE. Very interesting about digitization of the agriculture.
Right.
Anyway,
Yep.
go to Natalia. Natalia, can you comment on what is missing for Brazil?
Yeah, about education, there is a huge gap. The students are not being prepared for the future, for today. All the students, agronomists, and other areas for the agribusiness are not being prepared for the digital transformation. They are studying other things. Brazil, I think all the world, they are all making need to make changes in the curriculum. How can I say the grade? The grade. The grade of the universities, and this is a real problem, and we are seeing this problem right now. The farmers are not prepared to use technologies in the field.
It's interesting because if you are reaching very good results in terms of production, if we can improve this, I think the numbers will be much higher. This is great to know, and if we find where to solve.
What Natalia wants to say, it's about there's two elements that make it very quick. One is the practical knowledge. Universities in Brazil are very theoretical, and they make professors. They don't make farmers. So technical schools, in my opinion, will grow more, and there will be more parents should be proud of their son finishing a technical school instead of trying to make him a professor in agronomy. And the other point is that the way the laws are structured here on the universities, if you change something in their grading system, it's almost like talking to the Pope and trying to change. I have seen grants from over $5 million that were supposed to come to Brazil, and they ended in other countries because we were not able to adapt the local system. For example, to have an economical class really considered great. And they said, no, it will be done extracurricularly. And then the sponsor said, look, I don't want it extracurricularly. I want it in the curriculum. And this is something that is very difficult to touch in Brazil. Very difficult. And if there are Brazilian professors hearing me, some know me, this is like talking to the Pope and trying to change the dogmas.
Mm-hmm. Great. Kieran, any comments on that?
Yeah, I was just going to add on that. We did a study last year on the ag tech ecosystem together with Izalc and the University of Washington in the US. And basically, one of the big things we found, the biggest gap was maybe a lack of business training together with the agronomic training. So a lot of the startups had very technical founders, guys that were like agronomists and knew all about what the production and agronomy, but had very little knowledge or business model training. So we ended up with very product-focused startups and not very business-focused. And I think that sort of reflects as well with the farmers in general. They're very good at producing, very bad at selling. So I think when you change the business model and technology helps transform that, as I mentioned on my brother's farm in Ireland, his business model now is transforming because of technology. And I think that's very powerful. So when you change your business model, you become more efficient, you make more money, you become more stable, less risk. So I think for startups, it's the very same thing. Don't focus all your energy on the product, focus also on how to sell it and how to make money.
If we solve everything that you're saying, you're going to solve the Brazilians' problem. So that's great.
Yes.
So we have some questions from the audience. Can we this to Kieran?
Brazil by far, no comparison. So Brazil, we could even just look at it's all year round production cycle. You have the big variety, you have scalability. You have so many factors that are just all in Brazil's favor. I mean, if I was in Ireland now and thinking of starting farming, I'd be worried about how to compete, because Brazil is once it gets its big problem solved, which it's on its way to doing that, I think there's no stopping it. So yeah, for sure, no competition.
Great. Any other question?
There's a question here that I want to address about technology for the small farmer.
Go ahead.
I think, just to put a plug in for I think from Juliana. Thanks for that. So a plug for Instaagro, which is the retailer that I founded about 5 years ago. Our main client is the small farmer. So the middle-sized farmer, let's say from 100 to 1,000 hectares, is very well attended by the local distributor, the brick and mortar store in their region. And then the very big guys, the super farms, are what they call the one-to-one clients. They go directly to Syngenta, BASF, Bayer, Monsanto, and negotiate their contracts with them and with the traders. But it is the small farmer, let's say less than 100 hectares, who's feeding, just like Juliana said, who's feeding Brazil. 70% of our food comes from growers that grow on less than 100 hectares. That doesn't have great access to technology, and because they're basically beholden to the small retailer in their region, and they're not able to buy small quantities of products. And so that was really the key to Instaagro's success was honing in on that small grower, offering if the guy wants to buy a single bottle of something, or a single bag of seeds, offering small quantities and portfolios that they wouldn't necessarily find at their local retailer. So I just thought it was important to say that there are companies like Instaagro and I imagine others that are trying to address the small grower, which really has a very important role, obviously, in the food sector in Brazil.
Correct. There, according to Facebook.
I just wanted to see, there is one from Juliana also. She seems to be very active, and she said the Brazilian politicians are not supporting the forest. Look, it's very political, but I will say that the law that exists in Brazil to protect the forest is the best one in the whole planet. I don't know any other place that has similar, and I hope that it will be used in Africa and in Asia, where there is still some rainforest. The key issue that unfortunately is very badly explained to foreigners is the land ownership on the rainforest, because we have over 40% of the so-called tropical or Amazon area. The ownership of the land is unclear. And this is a responsibility from many governments, not from this government or the last one. It actually goes all the way back to the military. And we need to solve this. The problem of solving this, someone needs to make a decision and say, now you are a landowner. And I know cases, there are big disputes. And as long as we don't fix it, and I'm in favor of fixing it and then have an owner, because if you don't have an owner, then everything wild happens on it. And this is our problem.
Okay, guys, we are going to the end of this talk. Just a comment on first point that Juliana made here about the small farmer. The program from Facebook addresses solutions, tech solutions, digital solutions for small and medium farmers. So if you want to take a look on this, just give me just call me on LinkedIn or so, and then we can talk about that. Anyway, let's go to the final remarks. Can you start on the final remarks, Avram?
Sure. Well, again, it's been a fun hour speaking with everyone. I think we'll have some conversations offline also afterwards. And I'm, with the speakers here and anyone that wants to get in touch with me, I think all of our contacts will be made available. Again, I believe in the future of agriculture in general for the planet. It's really, obviously absolutely key for security, for food security and for public health security. And I think Brazil has a very important role to play in it. And I see a bright future for the Brazil's role in sustaining the global need for food as we progress. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Reverend. Natalia? You're in mute.
Again, sorry. It's been very interesting, our conversation, a lot of points, important points that we have to solve, and such as Avram, I believe also in bringing technology to solve all these problems, but we have to change the culture barrier that we have in Brazil. We can do this, but we need to work together. And today, with our topics, we could solve a lot of problems if we can really do this. And thank you, everyone that was looking for this panel today. Thank you.
Bernard?
Well, thank you, Kieran, for inviting me. It's always suspicious if an Irish invites a German. You always don't know exactly what's coming. And look, I really enjoyed this. And as I see the chat questions, for everybody, today we are being very judgmental about farming. In the same way we are very negative against the farmers. Whoever is still listening to us, try to talk to a few. Don't spend only half a day. Try to spend really a little bit longer, see how their day is. Over 90% of them are good people. Maybe you don't like me, but 90% of them are really good people and are trying to do the best. And the digital side is actually the same thing. I am absolutely convinced we are able to feed the world. I have no doubts about this. I think we will have to do some switching on certain things, on certain assets around the world. But if feeding is the problem, we will solve that. And the digital transformation in farming is happening and will be happening more. I just caution investors to think it will be, like their Excel files, because their Excel files always go up. And I joked with Rosanna before, I once made for a big company a strat plan with one going down. And then they said, "Wow, what do you mean? You have a crystal ball that's going down?" And I said, "Look, I come from a farming family. I've never seen 6 years in a row, 5 years in a row growing. It never happened. So it will go a little slower. So be cautious. Still, we need your money. We are looking for your money, because the future is not in the cities. This future is in the land."
Great. Finally, Kieran?
Yeah, so for me, I think an important issue we didn't touch on even is access to credit. I think that for me has been the biggest pain point for farmers in Brazil, high interest rates here. It's actually a lot more expensive to farm in Brazil than people would imagine. We've seen that with a lot of American farmers when they came to the northeast of Brazil and started farming, quickly went broke because they didn't have the infrastructure and the access to credit lines that they did maybe in the US. So I think access to credit is changing, and the government is pulling out of this sector a little bit, which I think is a good thing. I agree with Bernard, they usually get in the way. So the private sector is now moving into financing farmers, and the only reason they can actually do that is because of technology. So technology is helping to monitor the risk, to lower the risk, increase visibility into the risk. So it's not a coincidence that the first startup we invested in Brazil, and Bernard is actually also an investor in the same company, Terra Magna, is a company that uses technology to monitor risk, credit risk for financiers of the farmers. So basically what that does, it means that people can lend money to the farmer and know exactly the risk they're taking. And that means they don't have to have such a big spread on the interest rates, and they can do it at a reasonable rate, which means it's good for the farmer. They can expand. The serious and the good farmers are rewarded. The bad farmers are weeded out because they don't have access to that capital, because now they're suddenly being monitored and there's some control over that risk. So I think that's a very positive trend that could impact everything from outside and inside the farm gate. If you give farmers that know how to farm access to credit, they can produce. So I think that's a very key point in Brazil, that change in access to farm credit and the change in the risk perception of lending to farmers. So and obviously the private sector getting involved because of lower interest rates here now. There's fewer opportunities for fixed income returns. So I think there's more people looking to invest in alternative investment vehicles, and there's no better one than farming.
Thank you, Kieran. Turn to you, Richard.
Yes. First of all, guys, I just want to say thank you so much. The feedback we've had from people on YouTube, you'll see, is absolutely fantastic. So we're really super grateful to all of you, to all our panelists this evening. Also, I want to say a special thank you to Rosanna. There was an awful lot of content there, an awful lot of people trying to get involved. You did a great job in moderating everyone today, so I really, really appreciate it. So Rosanna, thank you so much. Natalia, much appreciated. Thank you so much. Muito obrigado. Avram, really appreciated. Really enjoyed your feedback, especially your inputs on the hard data. Bernard, it was fantastic. You awful lot of comments were coming in on YouTube about you, and you definitely had the award for the best joke of the night. And Kieran, I want to thank you so much on behalf of the Irish Business Network for helping us pull this together. So guys, really want to thank so much. I learned so much. From my point of view, one of the takeaways I had was how tech is entering farming and how hard data is driving changes in farming today, and how this is improving the lives for farmers on the ground. It's a bit about the stuff that Avram touched on and all you guys talked about. But I really feel like today we're supposed to be on for 1 hour. We've been on for 1 hour, 20 minutes. I feel like we could have gone on for hours, and the comments on YouTube certainly are a testament to that. So we're going to wrap up today. To wrap up, first of all, I want to thank again our wonderful sponsors. We had Mukol and Alessandri, who made a presentation at the start of the evening. Thank you so much to them. We had SMT Data Analytics, who's Sean Toomey. Thank you so much to Sean. I would also like to say a special word to Kevin Fife. Kevin, based in Ireland, he's the director of Kevin Fife Contracting Limited, where he has worked in data analytics and computer programming in the financial and pharma industries in Ireland and abroad. Kevin is a patron and friend of the Irish Business Network since we were formed last year. So thank you very much, Kevin, for your continued support and assistance. Now, all the people who've participated today, and there's been loads of you, we're going to be sending out a questionnaire to all you guys tomorrow. So we're very kind of focused here in the Irish Business Network to make things better. So any opinions you guys have, be they positive or negative, we'd love to hear them, because that can help us be better for the next time. So that questionnaire for all the people who registered on Eventbrite, we'll receive that tomorrow, and we'd love all your feedback. And this event we've done today, this will be available on our YouTube channel from shortly after this recording. So feel free to share it with all your friends and share it with anybody in your network. But from me, that's it. So I'd just like to say good night to everyone in Ireland. Muito obrigado por todos nossos amigos here in Brazil. Thank you so much to everyone who took part in the comments. A huge thanks to Rosanna on her excellent moderation. Big thank you to Kieran, to Natalia, to Avram, and to Bernard, and to all you guys at home. So from the Irish Business Network and myself, Richard, I'd like to say thank you so much and good night. Boa noite.